4 days. 20th of June, 2013. Peter! Sandra is rasping, straining, trying to lift herself up in the hospital bed. She can barely make out the name. Only I can hear it. Peter! I know what she's talking about. The time is 6:30 a.m. Brendan and I had driven Peter into hospital after the ward had called at 5. We'd been told yesterday it would be any time now. I'd contacted the others and they had managed to get there as well. Auntie Anne and Uncle David. Glenys had come. Nosy Linda too. Of course she had. It was Peter. All of us round the bed. She's only looking at me though. It was only me that she was looking at all day yesterday. She had no voice then. From the aftershock of the stroke. The burn of her eyes. I know she's going to say it. Peter! She barely has a voice now. Sandra is struggling to speak. This time her husband Peter is beside her and hears his name. He leans towards her, concerned, clasps her hands. I'm here, Sandra, I'm here. She's not looking at him though. It is me in her sights. I know she's not talking about him. This Peter, the one sat next to her in the room. Her eyes are knives. I look at the others. Sandra and I need some time. Can you wait outside? They shuffle out of the ward. Peter, Brendan, Glenys, Nosy Linda, Auntie Anne and Uncle David. Auntie Anne is glaring at me as she leaves. I wonder if she knows what this is about. Did she hear what Sandra was saying? Did she hear Sandra say that name? I check to make sure they're out of earshot. Narrowing my eyes, I sit on the bed. Sandra and I look at each other, faces up close. I know who you were talking about. You mean Uncle Peter, don't you? She looks set to detonate. Sandra is fear. She nods. Our eyes are locked. Peter, wasn't it? He's the one that did it. You're telling me who it is. Sandra's body is a twisted rope barely marking the NHS gown. 30 years she's been ravaged by multiple sclerosis. This nylon sack of skin and chicken bones has been simmered and reduced, a jerking half-body with maybe a few hours left. He raped me. Raped me. She's shaking, hoarse, scared. Peter! It was Peter! I know. We knew. We worked it out. Me and Brendan. About 6 months ago from a photograph. I have the same nose. Peter! He raped me. I'm sorry he did that. Thank you for telling me. I have been waiting nearly 43 years to be told this, and I feel nothing. All I could say was sorry and thank you. Sandra said it, and that was it. It meant everything possible and nothing whatsoever. Half of me, none of me, all of me. 8th of August 2021. The last time I took an alcoholic drink was Lionsgate, 8th of the 8th month. It was Red Stripe. Easier to carry a can from the Vauxhall Tavern. Walking along the river, the sun was coming up. It was near 6 a.m. It was a night of failure. I had picked up no one. First that I hear of him was the sound of a portable radio. He was on a bench opposite the Millennium Eye. I was curious. I thought he looked attractive. That said, at this point, I don't think any man under the age of 70 would have been attractive to me. I sat on the next bench. I don't know how we got talking. I don't recall him speaking to me. It was just talking. He was aware that I was there. He didn't stop talking. He was talking at me, but not looking at me. I sat next to him, told him my name. He gave me a cigarette. He said he was schizophrenic. I said my father had been too, but that I never knew my father. I'd met him once in a mental hospital with my grandparents. I was a young boy, though. I was only ever told that he was my great-uncle, which he was, as well as being my father. I told this man I'd never met before, on the bench with the radio blaring, that my great-uncle had raped his niece, and that is how I came to be born. I often tell complete strangers this story within minutes. He doesn't say anything to that. He just talks about local radio stations. I ask him to turn off the radio, and he does. He says he had gotten into trouble with young girls. They set him up, they had. Led him on. Got him into trouble, they did. They knew what they were doing, he says. He is homeless now. He tells me he is bisexual. I finish the second cigarette he's given me. I say I want to take him home, but I know I mustn't. He asks me to kiss him on the cheek. I do, and get up to leave. I walk towards Hungerford Bridge, and he screams my name, the top of his voice, crying out for me. Leon, please help me. This man had been channeling my father, Peter. June 21st, 2013, 9 p.m.ish. This evening is fraught. Running beyond empty, Sandra and her husband Peter have both passed their points of exhaustion. Earlier, the heart monitor raced and the ventilator came close to stopping. Calm is restored after slowly combing Sandra's hair and quietly wetting her lips. In the private side room on the ward where she had been put on the Liverpool care pathway, Sandra begins to sleep. Peter, leant over her bedside, is fast asleep too. Brendan and I look at each other and pick up 2 pillows. Now's our chance. You take him and I'll take her. Over their faces. Finish them off. Raising the pillows, we advance with stealth. Shaking with silent laughter, we have to stop, nearly rupturing into hysterics from our fatigue. Chris the gold digger is due to arrive soon. I texted her an hour ago to say how she would be welcome, but to let her know that it had taken a long while for Sandra to get off to sleep. I suggested she might want to enter quietly so as not to disturb them. Not much to ask, I innocently and arrogantly thought, as Sandra was about to die. Chris arrives throwing open the side ward door. Bang on cue, one of her 3 GBH convicted sons calls on her mobile phone. Chris bellows that she'll call him back. Resplendent in a fat roll-stretched polyester bumblebee top, Chris is here and the carnival is beginning. Hi, San, how you doing? The party is here. Time for some fun. 10:15 in a hospital side ward for a terminal patient, and the percussion of Lucky Charms on tanned leather skin tattoos is either to wake the nearly dead or finish her off. Likely the latter. It dawns on me that I have royally fucked off Chris the Gold Digger. Just who the fuck is this snooty queen from London telling her how to behave? This trash flash blast is a full-on territorial attack. Peter is to be her husband after Sandra. The 5th one she will loot and bury. Going over to help Peter with the ironing for the past few years, Chris has been playing the long game on this one. Sandra and Peter have never once mentioned this other son to her. But sure as hell this gay is not going to get in her way. I mean, it's not like they ever left the house and spent any of that disability allowance. Conceding defeat, I retreat to the pub with Brendan. Summer. Maybe 1977 or 1979, or perhaps another year nearby. Riding around on the front lawn on my bike. I might have been 9, I might have been 7. Catnip and hedges, 2 cars on the drive, round in circles on the front lawn on my bike. They're all inside, Mum and Dad, my sister Sandra, her husband Chuck, and their son Mark. The telly is on. Saturday afternoon horse racing. They don't switch it off, even though there's visitors. So many circles now I've done. Working it all out, the family tree. On the front lawn, on my bike. Mum was really my grandmother, and Dad was my grandfather. They had always told me that it was Sandra that had given birth to me. Sandra had only been 14. They'd had to take over. June 23rd, 2013. On the very last day of Sandra, we have a plan. Brendan and me. It has been 4 days. She has been nil by mouth on the Liverpool care pathway. The 6 weeks previous, Sandra was rushed into hospital with a broken leg. Her husband Peter had dropped Sandra when lifting her from the wheelchair. He was no longer able to cope with the physical demands of caring for his wife after 33 years. Sandra's MS. It had been progressing. After witnessing decades of the slowly thumping death that is multiple sclerosis, I can still never quite stomach how social and healthcare professionals talk of progressive MS. It is cruelly regressive. One time in those final hospital weeks, Sandra was in bed crying. In pain for over an hour, but age 56, the MS nearly done with her. Sandra needed help to turn over. She was unable to catch the attention of the nurses, as there was a far more ambulant older lady with dementia on the same ward drawing all attention. So there she was, my birth mother Sandra, being ignored again. Forgotten. Hidden. In pain. Here though, on this final day of Sandra's life, I need to say to her that it is okay, and that it is time for her to go. Until yesterday, I didn't know that that's what people did. My friend Lindsay and Sandra's neighbour had both gently said that sometimes people cling on to life, but their time is over. They need to be given permission to let go and to take that step into the unknown. I must do this alone, and it can only be me that does it. The irony of this having to be me that does it on this last day of Sandra has never been lost on me since. Brendan takes Peter for a coffee this Sunday morning. We tell him he needs a break from being at Sandra's bedside. Even up until now, and despite what we had been told, Peter will not and cannot hear or accept that there is nothing more that medicine, the NHS, the doctors, the nurses, absolutely nothing more now that they can do. He has no concept of life without Sandra, and Sandra is distressed at Peter's anxiety. I'm talking at her, she's not talking. I don't know what she is understanding anymore. A nurse comes into the side ward. The telly is on. Sandra can no longer speak anymore. I worry she has lost her voice after desperately gulping ice cream last night when we were watching Saturday night telly with her school friend Glenys. That must have been her last sensation of pleasure. It is hard to tell what Sandra is registering. The nurse leaves the room. I comb Sandra's hair and dab moisture on her lips with a damp tissue. She faces me. I say to Sandra that she must not worry about Peter, I will look after him. He will miss her terribly, but that it is time to go. She need not hang on anymore. The pain will be over. She stares expressionless, blinking. Words mean nothing and everything. Peter and Brendan come back into the room.